Welcome to another episode of the Pineapple Perspective with your host, Troy Hooper. That's me. I'm Troy Hooper. And this is always sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants. PepperLunchRestaurants.com. Come learn all about this DIY teppanyaki revolution, sweeping the nation, have already swept the world, and are going to fill the gaps wherever we don't exist. Pepper Lunch is coming to you, I promise. Today, we have a very awesome guest, a titan of the industry, somebody who's been around a long time, done a lot of things, not the least of which was own and operate restaurants, but also have a consultancy for a very long time, helping emerging independent and restaurant chains get off the ground, do a great job, and have successful businesses. He's now the host of Corner Booth, a podcast with and about and for the restaurant industry. He's been a long time partner and contributor at restaurantowner.com, now a part of the National Restaurant Association, and he spends his time focused on education in the industry, helping all of us learn and do better along the way. And the podcast is one way. His educational series, his in-person seminars, his speaking engagements, all a part of this content created ecosystem to help restaurateurs in their industry, in the business, do better. This is Chris Tripoli. Welcome, Chris.
Troy, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Really glad to have you. Really got to become aware of you not too long ago and dug in. Really enjoy your show. Really have enjoyed your thought leadership, and definitely wanted to find a way to get you on our show and spend some time together and help our audience with your knowledge and your experience. So glad you could take the time to be a part of the show with us.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's my pleasure.
So, Chris, we start every show after a brief intro like that, and we want to get to know you from the perspective that the pineapple represents, which is hospitality. So we ask first, what does hospitality mean to you?
God, it's great. I think it's a principle that's best explained by the ability to engage others, to create a pleasant experience that creates craveability. And that bond is what I define as hospitality.
So where does that come from? Like, we all sort of remember back in our days of where this idea of what hospitality is or how we learn it, whether through our parents, our grandparents, or a job. Where does that mindset come from you? How did you come to understand that?
You know, I remember it, and I remember the person. I was a very impressionable 15-year-old. I'm working at a very high-end steak seafood concept called the Colony Steakhouse. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. This is, the long tablecloth, the thin candle, the red bust coat, the cummerbund, and anyway. And that's the environment. The general manager there is a guy named Renato Nardoni, Ray Nardoni, big burly guy. Everyone called him Sugar Ray because although he looked like like a big bear, he was soft to the touch. And he told me, he said, if you really want to stay in this business, here's what you're going to always remember. Long after somebody leaves, long after they forget exactly what they ordered, long after they forget exactly what they paid, they're going to remember how they were treated. And I thought, oh, okay. I'm just a young guy thinking, okay, whatever you say, but it connected. And I think he's right. My entire experience in this industry, whether restaurants that are quick service, maybe limited engagement, more formal environment with an awful lot of engagement, I see that principle is the same. If you can somehow bond with that person and create an experience that's enjoyable, they're going to remember that long after, they forget what they paid and what they ordered.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how you make them feel, right? That's the memory, core memory bank that we remember. Unless you've got the greatest single menu item that they've had in their entire life, what are the chances of that on any given Tuesday, right?
Exactly.
It's really hard to have the food or the drink or the value or just the space, right? The space can be beautiful and amazing, but if the service sucks or the food's an environment's an environment. But as you know, it's that full picture, and some things amplify that, but I agree with you.
I had it summed up once years later where the guy said, yes, I want somebody weeks later when he drives by the building to go, oh, what? Yeah, we have to go back here. He doesn't have to remember why. He doesn't have to remember what he ate. He just has to go, oh, we had a really good time there. We need to go back. Boom. Then you know you've delivered a hospitable experience.
Shout out to Urban Rye, Herb and Rye, Las Vegas, Nevada. I've actually recently told a lot of people about this restaurant when they say, "Hey, I'm going to Vegas," or "Where should we eat?" or whatever. Gosh, I've had all the disappointing experiences on the strip. I've paid all the money to have those
Sure.
lessons. To go off the strip to this really like where am I parking lot and walk into this building with no windows and have some of the greatest experiences in dining and drinks and atmosphere and attitude and the vibrancy of the crowd and the guests you're spending time with. Boy, I'm telling everybody, Urban Rye in Las Vegas. You got to get a reservation several days out if you want a table. We love to just walk in and wait to sit at the bar. Might wait 20 or 30 minutes with a drink in your hand, but man, the people watching is great. It's a feeling. I cannot tell you. Is it the greatest steak? No, it's very good food. Are they the greatest cocktails? They're very good. Is it affordable? It's not outrageous. Are the people pleasant? Yeah, they're really kind of cool. They have a great attitude, but it's the whole thing. It's pretty awesome. Chris, tell us about your history a little bit. Catch us up. I edify you with an introduction, but give us some details there. Tell us a little bit about your career and what's made you this iconic thought leader in the industry today.
Well, I'm just one of those lifers. I got started in my teen years and I never left. It just connected with me. I enjoyed that first experience. I was bussing tables. I got in the kitchen. I was prepping food. My first education was that of high end. So I didn't know anything else. I mean, honestly, I thought all steak came from a loin that was hung for weeks in a dry aging room, because that's just what I saw. I had no idea that on the other side of town, somebody was taking it out of a cryovac bag or something. So I was just learning basic principles. And what happened to me, and this is what has instilled me to like the teaching side and to mentor others, is that I was quickly mentored. I mean, I'm 15, I'm a high school kid, but because the manager saw that I was interested, I asked questions. He cross-trained me. In fact, within a year, my schedule was basically just come in every day after school. We're an evenings only place. You can sit in the office to do your homework with Daryl Anthony. I still remember his name. He was the accountant. And this is years ago. This was back when you were doing manual books and ledgers and you're taking reservations on the phone with a legal pad. And, it was crazy old. You had written purchase orders. He had me checking in deliveries. Everything was very manual, but they just said, if you're interested, we'll show you and we'll teach you the business. So I stayed there for a few years and I always thought if I could just manage restaurants for others, what a fun way to enjoy making a living. And I think that that's the number one principle. Is you have to stay in a career because you enjoy doing what you're doing. If you're not really enjoying it, makes no difference really how good you are, how much money you think you're going to make. Really go find something else that you're going to enjoy. So I stayed there. I managed. I studied a little bit in school. I did not get the culinary and I did not do HRM because quite frankly, back then it was just a little too hotel-y for me. I'm talking late 60s, early 70s. So by the mid 70s, I'm out of college. I've got a little bit of food service and some business. And I moved to Houston, Texas. And it's all because I met a guy who wanted to expand this idea of slow smoked barbecue. He wanted to make it a small neighborhood chain with a drive-through window, hamburgers. And I thought, that sounds so exciting. I'm coming from Arizona, where at the time, going to a barbecue meant putting a steak on the grill. So I thought the idea of mixing woods and 12 to 18 hours and smoke, I want to learn this. This is great. So I moved to Houston, Texas for what I thought was going to be a few years, do some learning, make some money and come back home. Instead, Texas became home. I learned a lot at a very young age on the process of starting up and the strategy of opening, because we went from 1 to 7 locations in 5 years. I climbed the ladder from a manager trainee to manager supervisor. I left as the director of operations, and I only left because along the way I had an opportunity to nurture an idea of mine. And I found a couple of real estate developers that liked it. Now, it wasn't that easy. It was, after a lot of no's and you're crazy and, whatever. I got a couple of guys that liked the idea. And so I was able to form my own restaurant company and I opened my own restaurants. And we did a very casual, fun, swinging door saloon, casual concept. And we did 3 of those fairly quickly in the 80s in Texas, Austin, and Houston. So I got to do a little bit of replication and expansion on my own. After that, I developed a different type of restaurant. And at that restaurant is where I met another group that would be tremendous impact for me. This was a large national group. There were entertainment managers, had a slew of nightclubs from Piscataway, New Jersey to Osaka, Japan. But they wanted to move into restaurants. So I joined the group to do business development and create restaurant concepts for them. And that was a ball. We did that for a few years. We flipped some of the clubs into restaurants. We created a really good high-end seafood concept called Trulux, the first one in Houston, then Dallas. Of course, now there's about a dozen of them everywhere. And so that experience took me into doing restaurant development work for others. And that's when I formed my first consulting company in the mid-90s. And I started working for clients that were small independents that just wanted to improve their operations and they wanted to successfully grow. And I ran a consulting company for about 26 years, sold it to the young lady who was working for me at the time. So it's still continuing. I'm proud of her. She's doing great. I sold that when my wife and I wanted to slow down a little bit, move to the hill country and live by a lake. So that's when I started to do much more of my online work, podcast work, webinar work. And I helped my brother develop a company that he's running now called Restaurant Clinic. The Restaurant Clinic, you can find it, therestaurantclinic.com. Great group of people. And they are doing restaurant leadership development for leadership teams. They're doing expansion strategies for small companies wanting to grow. It's an Austin-based company with nationwide clients. And so that's kind of where I am now. A little bit of that and a little bit of my stuff, and I'm having fun.
Amazing history. And the fact that you still have a passion and a love and you just want to help others through these avenues is very remarkable. So let's this is the part of the show, Chris, where we get into a little bit of meat and potatoes let's chop it up about the industry a little bit. I had a pretty significant piece of my career similarly in consulting and helping emerging founders become emerging brands. Theoretically and ideally, their goal was to usually scale through the franchise model. But there are foundational things there. And I want you to share some of these things. You and I use a similar term when we talk about principles. I believe in guiding principles and core values. Talk about some of the principles that are ubiquitous in delivering a successful hospitality experience. And so it doesn't matter if you're fine dining. You and I both started in fine dining, and I went into hotels and resorts and private clubs and golf clubs. You did some other things. But there are some core things that I think that translate regardless of what model. If you're doing a donut shop or a Michelin star restaurant, what are some of those principles that are core and true across all of hospitality?
Yeah, I think that's great because you're right. There really are some. And it's whether you are a listener today in your small limited menu quick serve, or you are a real large facility, full service, bar, banquet rooms, the whole thing. There are principles in being able to say, succeed. And what's interesting is they all start with P. The first principle is a good people program. You have to have a good people program. And it starts with the concept person. It starts with the owner operator. Are you in your right place? Are you doing your right thing? Did you build the right team? Do you have a people program that can attract, train, retain, engage, and have a really good, team? If you're looking to grow, do you have a culture where you're attracting a bench strength? Because it all starts with people. Or at least in my opinion, I've seen more people that are successful with growth when it started with their team. Now, the second principle, of course, is product. The product obviously just has to make sure that it hits target. People get confusing when they think of product, where they think, is it supposed to be the best of this? Am I supposed to have everything for this? And no. It's supposed to hit the target. As you know, this is a competitive industry. crazy competitive. So if you're working on trying to grow, you got to make sure that you're not just hitting the dartboard anymore. You've got to be hitting the bullseye. So your product has to be true to the concept. And after people, I think the next principle is having a good quality product program, from purveyors to menu development to item costing to seasonal improvements, et cetera. And then the third one, I think, is process and procedures. The next principle that we spend a lot of time on is that we're not going to be able to have a brand that creates long-term value. We're not going to be able to have a concept that's going to be able to be profitable, or we're not going to have a company that's going to be able to grow if we can't have consistency. So if we've got really good people, we've got really good product, our challenge is, can we put that into a process and procedure so that when someone comes into unit number 11 on a Thursday and really likes it, they can take their group to unit number, 32 on the next Tuesday and have that same feel. They got to leave with that same feel. Without really good systems, then we fail consistency. But if we can do those three, then we can be profitable and we can win. And that's typically what I see when I work with people who have been winning. And typically when I work with people who are struggling, we go through those same principles and we can identify, where the dominoes fell, where they're not right, and we know exactly where to go fix.
Yeah, I'm absolutely buying what you're selling. I would add to that promote. I would add the marketing side to that.
Yeah.
Kind of, I like I'm going to keep the P theme here. And, sometimes sales solves a lot of problems. It masks a lot of problems, no doubt.
Yes.
But sometimes it'll buy you the time to figure out that your process needs to be fixed and your people need to be, thought about a little bit better. But that's fantastic stuff. So what are you seeing? You get to talk to a lot of independents, a lot of founders, a lot of operators out there. What are you seeing as sort of the top core challenges in today's environment? What's different about running a restaurant than when you and I started in the industry and had our own restaurants? Although I still have a wine bar today, I have my own ideas of what the challenges are. What are you seeing today that's sort of top of mind for these folks?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing, especially on the independent side, is sort of the slow to adapt, or the failure to react to the changing world. There are still people, I believe, that are privately saying things are going to settle. We're going to go back to the way we were. I don't understand that. There has never been, and there certainly isn't now, a go back. Customer profile doesn't go back. Trends don't stop and change. COVID wasn't a speed bump. It was a complete direction change. And so I just think that if we are reluctant to study today's customer profile, and make sure that we fit in with their demands for quality and engagement, and their demands for convenience, and service. And if we can't adjust to that, then we're going to be failing to grow, and we're just going to be helping others down the street who are. So there might be some other stumbling things, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm normally told something else. When I'm meeting with people, the first thing they're talking about is this tough labor market. What's really changed is no one wants to work anymore. Everyone's in other industries, and I can't find people. That's what I'm hearing. Well, okay, but there might be a reason why you're not finding the people. Or it's the cost. Have you seen the cost? Today we're griping about eggs. Next week we're going to be griping about something else. Every week.
Beef's going up.
Yeah. We can be griping about costs all the time. And I'm thinking, you know what? There's always seems to be some element of cost. I wish there wasn't, but there always seems to be either a produce issue or a Florida citrus issue or a beef issue, an egg. We go from issue to issue. So we're going to have to find ways of managing the cost issue. But I think the bigger issue to me is the one on top of that. And that is, are the owners reluctant really to study, keep up, and, embrace where we're going?
How do you, I'm digging in on that one. How do you encourage, what is your advice? How does an independent who's got his hands absolutely full, maybe it's a couple, maybe it's an individual, I don't know, but they've got their hands really full with what they've got, and they are focused on some of these pressing challenges that seem to just keep coming, like the fires. Just I'm a fireman, I just keep putting out fires. How do you encourage them, or what is the change in their system or their process that you would suggest so that they can step out of work on the business, not in the business, and really take up? Because there's a lot, right? Whether you want to tackle technology or
Right.
you want to tackle changing my business model or service model, or whatever those things are, maybe get much better at my financial and inventory management so I can have less waste and be tighter on the numbers. Whatever that is, how do you suggest people make that transition?
Well, great. I mean, great point, because that's exactly where most people are. And first thing I like to do is congratulate them for the fact that, they're grasping it. That's the first thing you've got to do, is be able to raise the flag and ask the question, how can I get some help to get there? I really do want to be operating the business, not always putting the thumb in the dike. I do want to stop complaining about every day I've got this problem and Carl in the kitchen doesn't want to work and I got this. Okay. I would like to stop that, and actually have a plan to follow. Okay. Then the second thing is we want to tell them it's not going to happen overnight. This is not a business that can take you from, being in it every day to actually working on it overnight. But in a very short fashion, we can plan. So if they're willing to do that, then we start with those principles and we say, we're going to have to build a team. If this is a small independent, you've got 2, maybe 3 stores, very small team. Maybe it is a husband and wife operation and they're running in circles and they're just exasperated, So the first thing we're going to do is let's start from a point of strength and let's analyze who we have and what we're doing. And let's come up with short-term plans. Then we're going to celebrate the success. Every short-term plan, whether we can just plan by the week so that we can have a better structure for ordering or a better structure for reporting, a better structure for scheduling labor. It starts with small baby steps and it really works. We've gotten many people now into successful annual planning, really good knowledge of their numbers, but they would tell you that, 4 or 5 months ago, we didn't know that we would actually be able to plan for 2025 because in October of 2024, they were one of those that was, again, running in circles, having no idea how well October worked until the middle of November, when their accountant sent them numbers. I thought, so there is a way, but it's a step-by-step process and you're not going to get there by yourself. You're not going to get there overnight. So we're going to have to take a look at our strength and engage with our people. That's one of the biggest things that helps these small independents move from being that micromanager, I'm in the business and I don't know any other way to doing it, to actually finding that there really is a way. I can direct the show. I can support other people. I can get more done. Now I'm actually running a business. And that's engaging with the people, because a lot of times the best systems have been developed from the suggestions that come from within.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. It is a tough transition, but it's the only way to grow. It's the only way to really have resilience in your business and have a plan for how to get through these speed humps of varying sizes, some of which are redirecting of our entire industry like COVID. But I absolutely agree that it's a necessity or you can't. Now, I love how you started that out, because I say it all the time, somebody has to raise their hand. You have to realize that there is a way forward and a way to get better and a way to scale your business, but you're going to need help. And a lot of times it's just that external perspective. It's the outside perspective. You probably know it. I talk to so many people that are like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know you know it, but do you know how to take it from I know to I will and I am, and how to do that in a methodical and strategic way that matters and will make an impact? Because people aren't going to do things they don't see results from. So let's get
And
some
where
wins
that
on the
gets a
board.
little difficult, you may have
Yeah.
seen this too, where it gets a
Yeah.
little difficult is if the person that you're working for had unbelievably unrealistic expectations to begin with. If you're not really fighting the reality, but you're fighting their picture of reality. And we come across this sometimes with the people who are attracted to our business that may have been very successful in other businesses, but never really took the time to know, understand, work in the restaurants at all. So when you meet with those people that say, well, the good news is I'm in the business. Yay. What's the bad news? I'm in the business. I don't know what I'm doing, but I own 3 stores. I retired from my whatever position I had, and I invested my retirement into this, and I quickly opened 3 stores. And he had these very high expectations of where he would be in a role with profit, et cetera. And then you're trying to break the reality of how, the restaurant business might get you there, but how difficult it is and how tight the margins are. So that kind of education after the fact is where it gets painful.
Yeah, I think our industry is very underappreciated for its complexity and how many moving parts and how cross reliant many of the aspects of our business are on one another, and how the snowball it gets big really quick if you're going the wrong direction for sure. Chris, obviously, I'm exporting systems and American processes. We're exporting the franchise business model outside the US to the rest of the world and utilizing it now on all of our new deals globally. We're beginning to export our tech stack, really having proven the value of the interconnectivity of technologies and the efficiencies that they can bring the global unit and the franchisees. So a lot of things are coming from the US and going out. What are your experiences with exporting and what the expectations outside of the United States are? Why is the U.S. seen as such a pinnacle of the restaurant industry, and why do so many countries want our brands, but also want sort of our processes or our way of doing business?
That's a great point because, yeah, I spent many years in different countries, always with locally owned independents wanting to grow. And part of it was because of what you just said. They saw the popularity of American brands. The smaller businessman somewhere in the Middle East who owns shopping centers or wants to build his own restaurants. And he saw, the casual brands coming from America and just how busy, a Chili's or an Applebee's or a Ruby Tuesdays, or when Cheesecake Factory opened, or, oh my God, Shake Shack comes to Saudi, lines down the street. And so all of a sudden they're saying, why can't I do that? And they can. And I think that kind of leads to what I think they're looking to export from the United States. All of the work that we did, and we worked in Central America, South America, the Middle East, Cayman, Caribbean, Canada. The one thing that was constant was they knew they weren't looking to us to originate some culinary trend. They were smart enough to know that America is the melting pot. We really have all of the really cool culinary trends that came from European style of cooking, the Mediterranean influence, what we love about Southwest Mexico, South America, Asian influences, as you're very, very familiar with. So they're not calling us, for culinary or Epicurean knowledge. They look at the United States as basically the engineers of the industry. They know that what we can help them realize is how to make the business successful, how to operate consistently, how to grow a brand, how to maintain profit. Those were always the questions I was asked. In fact, the first time I worked in the Middle East, I was stunned that I was selected for the job because obviously they knew this would be my first time going there. And I knew they were interviewing other people who were a member of the same international consulting organization that, I am and still are today. So I thought, are they just wanting a different approach? Are they just looking for a proposal to compare? Am I just keeping Tarek, the guy out of Egypt, honest on a bid? I mean, I don't know. So after I was the one that got the letter and got selected, I asked the question that you just posed, that this is very interesting. I know I can do it for you, but why? And that's when he said, we want somebody in America who, like you, have had years of creating concepts and expanding, because we know what we want to do, but we want to do it like an American. We want to be able to hire like these guys do. We want to train like they do. We want to market like these guys. And everywhere he was pointing, more American casual brands. So I think that's what that still to today they're looking for, is that kind of knowledge and ability to manage, grow, and be profitable.
Yep. No, I'd agree with you. That's great. Fantastic. Chris, let's talk quickly about your educational series and opportunities. You're doing a lot of things. You have your own podcast. Let's talk about that. But also, you're writing, you're putting out articles and making appearances. Talk a little bit about how people can engage with you, find your content, continue to learn more from you.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I have been actually teaching a lot of small business administration advisors, SBA advisors, for years, are reaching out, and they reach out through the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers. Any listener might be, if they're in the continental United States, there's like 1,100 different Small Business Development Center offices. They are typically connected to an educational center, community college, or a university. I have contracts with many of them to continue to do webinars, and I do courses for those advisors to stay current on the proper process of opening, concepting, operating, growing restaurants, because they've got clients coming to them looking for assistance. So you can find me on the restaurantclinic.com. Most all of the information that we are writing is posted there. Restaurantowner.com is another website where you can find our work. The work that I've been doing for years has been turned into content on restaurantowner.com. I think that's actually probably the single best source on the web today for a small independent to go to. There's a tremendous amount of reading material. There's educational videos. There's downloadable items and webinars. I'll be doing a webinar next month, and then another webinar, I think, later in the year, either August or September. So between the Small Business Development Centers, restaurantowner.com, or the restaurantclinic.com, you can find my material quite regularly. Or you can just go listen to Corner Booth. As you mentioned, we're having a ton of fun with a podcast called Corner Booth. Restaurantowner.com started that a couple of years ago. We feature small, growing, independent operators that are willing to share their story on what drove them and how they do things. This is an industry, Troy, as you probably know, we love learning from one another.
Yeah.
People will share principles and mistakes made and advisement. And so Corner Booth is pretty much just a platform for operators to tell other operators what they would do again, what they would never do, what they did right, wrong, etc. And so we hear from our listeners that they love learning from one another. And so Corner Booth, which you can find anywhere you like to go to pick a podcast, is another place to find me.
Chris, where can people directly reach you? What's the best way to look you up and reach out to you?
I'm on Instagram, Chris Tripoli, FCSI, or just email. I email all the time. I text. You can find me Chris@christripoli.com. That's CHRISTRIPOLI.com. So yeah, contact me. I'm happy to interact, answer any questions, or help if I can.
That's amazing, Chris. Hey, thanks for your time. Thanks for everything you do for the industry. Thanks for sharing your knowledge here and on your show and elsewhere. And looking forward to continuing to keep up with you and come to you with questions and thoughts, and certainly introduce anybody I think could use your help. We appreciate having you. Thanks for coming
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And Troy, best continued success to you and everything you're doing, man.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.